On Thursday, June 18, 2026, at the Steffi Graf Stadium in Berlin, 21-year-old Filipina tennis player Alex Eala defeated world number 2 Elena Rybakina 7-5, 6-4 in the round of 16 of the Berlin Open. The match took 1 hour and 32 minutes to complete, and by most measures it stands as the biggest win of Eala's season. So to understand why this result mattered so much, you need to understand who Elena Rybakina is. She is the 2022 Wimbledon champion, a result she earned on the same grass surface where this Berlin match was played. She is also a 2-time Grand Slam finalist, having reached the Australian Open final in addition to her Wimbledon title. And she has held a place inside the WTA top 10 for an extended stretch of her career. Her serve is widely regarded as one of the heaviest on tour, generating pace that is difficult to time even for players accustomed to facing elite servers. On grass specifically, her game is built to do damage. The low, skidding bounces that the surface produces play directly into her hands, letting her generate pace and depth that most opponents struggle to handle. Beating Rybakina on grass is considered one of the toughest single-match assignments in the women's game, precisely because grass amplifies her biggest weapon. The Berlin Open itself sits on the WTA Tour calendar as a 500-level event, one of the higher-tier tournaments outside the 4 Grand Slams. It also functions as one of the main grass court tune-up events ahead of Wimbledon, drawing a strong field of players who use the week to sharpen their game on grass before the season's 3rd major. A deep run in an event of this size carries real weight, both in ranking points and in match readiness terms. Heading into a Grand Slam, just 5 weeks before Berlin, these 2 players had already met on clay at the Italian Open in Rome. That match was not competitive. Rybakina won 6-4. 6-3, dropping only 7 games across 2 sets. So when the Berlin Open draw placed Eala in Rybakina's section, the expectation among most observers was straightforward: a quick, comfortable win for the world number 2, repeating what had just happened in Rome. Between Rome and Berlin, Eala's results told a different story. She traveled to the Birmingham Open, a WTA 125-level event, a tier below the main WTA Tour, used mainly by players building ranking points and match form, and won the title there. It was her second WTA 125 crown. That title came on grass, and it gave her 7 wins on grass in her last 9 matches heading into Berlin. Her momentum was briefly interrupted by an early exit at the HSBC Championships at Queen's Club, but she arrived in Berlin with her grass court form restored and her ranking sitting at world number 35. Eala's run in Berlin began with a first-round match against Donna Vekic. Vekic had won the Queen's Club title the week before, arriving in Berlin ranked number 33 in the world and playing some of the best tennis of her season. Eala defeated her 7-5, 6-4, a scoreline that would repeat itself in the very next round. The Vekic match was tighter than the final numbers suggest. Serving for the match, Vekic held 4 break points that could have ended it. Eala saved all 4, then closed out the match with 2 consecutive aces. That sequence is worth pausing on because of what it demonstrated under pressure. A player serving for a match against a higher-ranked, in-form opponent typically needs only one of those 4 break points to convert. Eala denied all 4, then finished the contest immediately afterward rather than allowing the match to drift into a deciding set. That kind of finish, on serve, against 4 break points, is the type of detail that does not show up in a final scoreline, but matters significantly for a player's confidence heading into a tougher match. Asked about her mindset afterward, Eala kept her answer simple, saying, "I'm also a fighter, so I had to try." It moved her into the round of 16, where Rybakina was waiting. The match against Rybakina began exactly the way the pre-match form suggested it would. Both players held serve through the first 3 games. Then Rybakina broke Eala's serve in the 4th game and backed it up with comfortable hold of her own, opening a 4-1 lead in the first set. At that point, the match looked like it was tracking toward the same outcome as Rome. Eala's response came in the 7th game. Rybakina hit back-to-back double faults, and Eala converted the resulting break point to get back on serve. Double faults at that stage of the set carry extra weight. They hand over a free point without any contribution from the returner, and against a player capable of building momentum quickly. 2 in a row at 4-1 opened the door Eala needed. She followed that immediately with a hold of her own, featuring 2 aces to level the set at 4-4. Both players then held through the next 2 games, taking the set to 5-5. In the 11th game, Eala broke Rybakina's serve again to move ahead 6-5, then had to serve out the set herself. That final service game won the distance. Accounts describe a set point that did not convert before the game reached deuce, but Eala held her nerve and closed it out, taking the opening set 7-5 after nearly an hour of play, going from a 4-1 deficit to taking the set 7-5 against a player of Rybakina's caliber, on a surface that favors the server, is itself a notable swing within a single set. The second set followed a different shape. Rybakina held open the set, but Eala then won 3 straight games, including a break in the third game, to build a 3-1 lead. That break turned out to be the only one needed. From that point, both players largely held serve, and Eala did not let Rybakina generate any sustained pressure. Some accounts of the closing stretch describe Rybakina fighting off a match point along the way before Eala finished the job. Regardless of that detail, every report agrees on the final outcome. Eala served out the second set 6-4 to complete a 7-5, 6-4 victory. The statistics from the match help explain how the upset happened. On Rybakina's second serve, Eala won 19 return points, compared to just 9 won by Rybakina on Eala's second serve, more than double, against a player whose entire game plan is built around controlling play behind a heavy first serve. That gap on the second serve return is significant. A first serve from Rybakina is difficult for any opponent to do much with beyond simply getting the ball back in play. But a second serve carries less pace and less margin, which gives a strong returner room to step in and dictate the point instead of just defending it. Whenever Eala was able to get a racket on Rybakina's second delivery, she consistently turned defense into offense, and that pattern repeated itself often enough to tilt the whole match. It is also worth noting that Eala won both of her matches in Berlin's first 2 rounds, against Vekic and then against Rybakina, by the identical scoreline of 7-5, 6-4. 2 matches against players ranked in the world's top 35 and top 2 respectively, decided by the same score in straight sets, points to a level of competitive consistency across the tournament rather than a single isolated upset. Speaking afterward in her on-court interview, Eala described her state of mind in direct terms. She said she was still shaking, including at match point, and that she was happy with how she had played, calling several stretches in both sets tight, while crediting Rybakina as one of the best players on tour. This was not Eala's first win over elite competition, but it was among her most significant. It marked her 5th career victory over a top 10 ranked player. It was also her 2nd career win over a player ranked in the world's top 2, following her win over Iga Swiatek, a multiple-time Grand Slam champion, in the quarterfinals of the 2025 Miami Open. Combined with the Berlin result, that gives Eala 2 career wins against players who were, at the time, ranked number 1 or number 2 in the world. At world number 35, she defeated the world number 2 in straight sets, on the surface considered that opponent's strongest. Wins of this kind, against top 2 opponents, remain rare for players ranked outside the top 30. Most of the matches between top 2 players and players ranked in the 30s end in straight set wins for the higher-ranked player, particularly on grass, where the serve plays an outsized role in deciding short, fast points. Eala's win bucked that pattern twice in just over a year, once against a multiple Grand Slam champion on a hard court in Miami, and now against a Wimbledon champion on the grass surface that suits her game best. For Rybakina, the loss extended a difficult run of results through the early part of the 2026 grass season. She had already suffered a second-round exit at the French Open and a quarterfinal loss at Queen's Club before arriving in Berlin. The defeat to Eala left her with a 1-2 record on grass for the season, with the Bad Homburg Open and Wimbledon still remaining on her calendar before the year's 3rd Grand Slam. For Eala, the win pushed her into Berlin Open quarterfinals in her tournament debut at the event. Her next opponent was world number 6 Elena Rybakina, a former world number 3 and a multiple-time Wimbledon semifinalist who has built her career on grass court success and consistent deep runs at the majors. Facing Svitolina immediately after a win of this magnitude meant there would be no easy match to settle into. The quarterfinal presented another high-level test on the same surface, where Eala had just produced her biggest result. The result against Rybakina also carried weight beyond the immediate scoreline, since it came on the same grass surface where Rybakina built her reputation as a Wimbledon champion, and it arrived just 5 weeks after Rybakina had beaten her comfortably on clay in Rome. Looking at the full sequence of Eala's season leading into this match, a clear pattern emerges. She lost to Rybakina in Rome in straight sets. She responded by winning a WTA 125 title in Birmingham on grass. She opened her Berlin campaign by saving 4 match points against a player who had just won her own tournament the week before. And she closed out the round of 16 by beating the world number 2 in straight sets after trailing by a break early in the first set. This one arrives roughly 11 days before the start of Wimbledon, which begins on June 29, 2026. It will be Eala's second appearance in the Wimbledon main draw in her career. Going into the tournament, she carries a result that demonstrates she can compete with and beat top-tier opponents specifically on grass, a surface where building a track record against the sport's elite has historically taken players considerably longer than this. Strong results in the final weeks before a Grand Slam also typically influence seeding conversations and draw expectations, since tournament organizers and broadcasters tend to track which players are entering an event in form. The result is also notable in the context of Philippine tennis, a country with limited historical representation at this level of the WTA Tour. Eala has been recognized in multiple reports as one of the most successful Filipino players in the sport's modern era, and a straight sets win over a Wimbledon champion on grass adds directly to that record. It is also her 5th career win over a top 10 player, a tally that places her among a relatively small group of players outside the top 30 in the world with that many top 10 victories on their resume. Taken together, the 2 rounds in Berlin also reframed the short-term trajectories of both players heading into the grass court major. Rybakina now heads into her remaining grass tune-up at Bad Homburg, and then Wimbledon itself, off back-to-back disappointing results on the surface that produce her only Grand Slam title. Eala heads into the same stretch with a different problem to manage: expectation. A win of this profile against a Wimbledon champion does not just add a number to a head-to-head record. It changes how opponents, seeding committees, and broadcasters approach her matches going forward, on a surface where she has now shown she can beat the best players she has faced all season. Putting the full sequence together, Eala entered Berlin off a loss to the very player she would go on to beat 5 weeks later. She used a grass court title in Birmingham to rebuild her form. She survived a 4 breakpoint examination against a reigning Queen's Club champion in her opening match, and she then defeated the world number 2 by winning more than double the return points on the Kazakh's second serve across the match. Every part of that sequence is documented in the match record, and together forms one of the more complete results of the 2026 WTA grass court season heading into Wimbledon.